Oh, and I have one of my interns on. So he's going to be translating a lot of this for me. And I'm calling him an intern, but he's an apprentice. And that's probably the best way to describe this meeting, why I called you guys together, is for us to kind of get consensus on what can we send out as a single message on not just on February 28th, but really starting today. What can we do to get on the same accord so that we can get our messaging right and be able to cast people with an accountability to help us make sure that message is really right, tight, and crispy for anybody else who's qualified to take the message to the next level without blowing their brains out. So really, that's what I'm trying to do, is to make sure that I have focus on messaging, and I believe I've invited Renee on so that she can tell us a little bit more about how apprenticeship could help be one of the leading terms that we can take forward and learn how we can actually start to activate and engage her department on something that has been recently explained to us as good news, good, exciting news. So I'm going to start with Renee. And Renee, can you give us in your overview of everything you've heard and seen to date with me, how can we help the governor's office achieve goals that we're currently, again, tinkering with right now?
Governor Newsom has set a goal of 500,000 apprentices by the year 2029. And that's both the apprentice. And I see you nodding, Jeff. So you've heard that message, I guess. Yep. Okay.
Just very basics of it. Yeah.
Okay. And that also would include pre-apprenticeship. And pre-apprenticeship would be where the whole concept is that we're looking to take our workers and go either from unskilled to skilled or skilled to upskilled. And it's not apprenticeships where you're starting at minimum wage, but really it's fully scalable all the way up to having alignment with a master's or a PhD. So there's been a tremendous financial investment by the government within this project, and there have been more grant fundings that have come down. And so what we're looking at, actually, I mean, myself, where I'm in business services sector, there is Dr. Clement up in Fresno, who's the head of the IT sector in a sense, and to have him to merge IT with, help me out, Kevin, we're not saying entertainment.
Bless you.
Forgive me. Kevin, what is the word we were using? And not entertainment, but it's visual.
Man, I've used so many terms, but I've gone from entertainment to edutainment to something that can morph into pre-apprenticeship that would take on many different disciplines at one time for one single thread of getting to advanced manufacturing and all of those things that I believe we've taken on as pre-apprenticeship opportunities are embedded in Digital Pathway Initiative, which is research, storytelling, financial management, tech, and media. And nobody, to my knowledge, has ever put those together as some curriculum or even lesson plan.
You actually touched on the word that I was looking for, the edutainment, because yes, you have the aspect of it where you have people go to the movie theater or they're the gamers and it's more of a leisure activity, but looking at it through a lens of edutainment. From apprenticeship, Kevin and I have been discussing that it would be looking at something that would be, and oh my gosh, apologies, I'm nervous with all of you here in the room. But where we're looking to bring it into where it's and I'm losing it with the actual name of the occupation.
Yeah. Well, and
investigative journalism, that was it, because we've gone in so many different directions. I even have to stop for a moment because we've looked at things and where they weave and intertwine. So with investigative journalism, you can look at that as an occupation, but that really liberates you to explore any subject matter that you wish to apply it to. For example, there are the documentaries that Kevin has produced, but it can really essentially go to anything. When you think of healthcare and you look at it, our media and just even our educational learning is no longer flat. It's not just where you're sitting there, someone's talking at you. You have more in-depth graphics. You have information being transmitted to you in entirely innovative ways. And so what we're looking to do is to blend all of these three interests. And really it's actually also aligning with instructional design. And so when you're looking at how do you marry these various aspects? If I were going to go down a path of, let's say, healthcare, is healthcare just seeing a doctor anymore? No, because the pandemic changed our digital experiences forever. But even the doctor himself, you have telemedicine, but what about when the doctor needs to learn, or when they need to do their credits for each year for the continuing education? We're seeing graphics applied on a scale that we have not seen before. We also have a dire need for skilled talent. And what apprenticeship does is it marries education with an employer, with on-the-job training, so that you have an employee that has a relationship with you, and they're not job hopping because they don't, they're looking for their next dollar raise or whatever it may be. But to establish that relationship, and as an employer, to customize that training, where it's not just where a college said, this is our curriculum to get this degree, and this is what you have to do, but you have absolute employer engagement, employer input and control. It's because the employer will look at it and say, that's nice, but what does it do for me? And what employers want is they are looking to increase they're looking to increase not just their profitability, but there's a dire need for retention. And when you look at what the cost is to advertise, onboard, and give the entry-level training to an employee, state of California has approximated that at $30,000 per person. And that's something that also a lot of employers don't look at or sit down. The sharper ones do. The sharper ones do know exactly what it costs, but we have some that do not. Now, as an educational institute with UCLA, yes, you have always had a standard of excellence with your educational product. However, how does that meaningfully connect to careers and advancement and expansion that may be moving faster than your curriculum changes within the university? I mean, by the time, you're involved in instruction, so by the time it comes to you, the world has changed. So how do we keep it live and relevant? And I do believe that having the collective energy of workforce education and the government, because there is huge investment from the state of California, and Governor Newsom specifically is saying that in terms of hiring and workforce, that not just apprenticeship, but registered apprenticeship is the path to go.
Thank you, Renee.
Do you have some questions, Jeff?
Thanks. I don't know if I have questions. I mean, what I'm trying to sort of work through in my head is the relationship between these programs and what we had proposed to NSF and what Kevin is looking at in the Victory by Valor project. And because there's kind of several different sort of intersecting levels here. And but I think in concept, no, it makes sense to me. And it seems really like that issue of how quickly curriculum can evolve, is something that we are struggling with all the time. And also the relationship between professional training and academic training. So like our School of Theater, Film and Television and several other schools at UCLA are considered professional schools. And so they're tied more closely to professional training, especially at the graduate level, but we're not really resourced in a way to keep them moving tool wise. So we tend to emphasize things that are less about tool specific skills and more about general skills that apply across, hopefully things that are not changing as much. But in any case, I don't have questions as much about the programs or the intent or the value as sort of the short-term tactics. Like what are we trying to do? What can we, so what can we bring that would be useful? And just really quickly, since Renee, I don't know if I've explained it, but I think Kevin has heard it before. So we put this proposal into NSF because of a sort of lack of federal investment in the creative sector as it intersects with technology. And so that means, though, that without that investment, our resources are sort of limited in this area. But I've been trying to think of other folks on campus that have existing programs or existing interests that we could bring to bear in the short term. And so one thing that I can do by way of follow-up is to look at what we're doing in extension. And I know that in each of the universities that I had talked to, continuing education is one place where they're already engaged around this type of workforce training. And so those are the types of connections that we could make, because I think they're interested in moving into these areas. And I think the university is interested in stronger ties maybe between extension and the main campus. But I would love to maybe know what are sort of the objectives for the next, between now and February 28th, and then what are sort of the objectives in the 3 to 6 months that are following that, and then try to think through how to bring some more attention to this. And that's, I think, what I'm still trying to process. But as conceptually, I think I understand, and it's an exciting effort, right?
Right. And guys, what I'd like to have come out of this meeting is consensus on what we can do to brand the free apprenticeship program that would combine all this intersectionality, all this interdisciplinary work to creating a product. What could we call this thing? I mean, it could be Executive Order 9981, it could be anything, agnostic of the content, but what could we do to showcase a free apprenticeship that could become an apprenticeship one day as a pathway that people can start to post and publish? Because I'm getting most of my apprenticeship interest from people who are going to apprenticeship.gov. And I've got people calling me saying, hey, yeah, I want to be a digital editor. Well, I'm looking for more than digital editors, but the DOL kind of boxed me into something that they could understand, that could be posted and translated in a way where people, would come to engage that posting. And that's kind of what I want to expand and to get to continuing education people, is so that they can actually understand that there's something that could combine skills and mindset for a new apprenticeship category. And I don't know what to call it, but that's what I'm looking to try and socialize with people. What could we call this predator, this writer, director, editor, transcoder / almost engineer and person who can learn cybersecurity along the way, so that everything that they've done, created, published, can be protected at the very base level of understanding IT infrastructure and the need for cybersecurity. All of those things baked into one apprenticeship, or at least some hybrid, would be my goal. Because Executive Order 991, I'm just passionate about it, but it could be anything that would allow us to have a 360-degree look at all the different things that people could learn and apply to being more competitive, and especially manufacturing. But at the very least, that's what I'm looking for, is how do we brand something that we can articulate to someone who's not on this call?
Very quickly, before we answer that, Jeff, this question would be specific to you. As you're related to the university, what engagement do you have with employers? Because you're delivering instruction.
Yeah. It depends. The university is really big, right? And so
Mhm.
it depends sort of who you're asking, in the sense that at the undergraduate and graduate level, there are employer relationships that are about placement. We have students, we're trying to get them out into the world. They do career support functions. Extension has more specific bespoke programs that could be built for an employer, or that, you know, involve engagement with maybe employer organizations or people, and they will build custom courses and things like that, which the main campus will typically not do. And then, you know, I would say the rest of the campus, discipline by discipline, we have ad hoc relationships with different sort of major companies that may be funding research, or that we may have alumni at, and that generates different types of programs. And in the sciences, it often generates research funding, which is sort of something that we're trying to do at the you know, across the university instead of just in the STEM field. So it really depends on the area of the university, and I think there's a broad range of employer relationships. As far as you know, in the let's say apprenticeship or internship arena, I know they're different, but sort of there are really seem like two things. The main campus provides credit and connectivity to employers for work-related internships and things that you can get credit for. And then I believe Extension has a wider range, a sort of more flexible set of relationships around curriculum development that engage with regional employers in a different way. And so those are kind of two example relationships. The steam engine proposal, I think, is really trying to add to that a more direct engagement around research, in which in the creative context includes production, right? So there's sort of an opportunity to do production with emerging technologies as research in a university, which is what we do, and plug into that these different aspects of other relationships to employers that we already have.
Right.
Does that help? I don't know if I was answering the question or it's too broad, but I can try again if there's some other part you want to know about.
Well,
I
and I was
would
going to say,
ask, go ahead, Kevin.
well, I was going to say a perfect example of what I'd like to see unlocked are all the specialized internship programs that normally take either that continuing path to something that the big university takes to the continuing, and then they put it out as a summer internship. And what I'd like to think is something that could actually be a hybrid, where we could be studying and applying research and application year round. And because the summer is just too short of a landing strip for people to really learn, apply, and get into some extended internship that could land themselves a gig or an apprenticeship. And that's where I think you can start hunting for examples of how to start daisy chaining some of these summer internship programs together to something that's longer and morph into something a lot more substantive to what we're looking for in apprenticeship. So I know UCLA has a summer internship program for all their disciplines, but is that where we could possibly be hunting for people to say, hey, well, could we expand there as opposed to trying to create some new things? Question.
My question was in terms of employer engagement and where you have partners, what does that actually coalesce or actualize into? What are are they taking one or two of the graduates, or even at the student level, are they taking 30? Is it, I don't know if it's like a one-off, or are they actually taking cohorts?
I'd have to do a bit more research to give you a good answer, but typically, at least at the divisional level, it more, I wouldn't say they're one-offs, but you know, they're ongoing relationships, but there's not big cohorts of our students moving into those internships. They're just not set up that way. So for example, at Disney, maybe there might be a variety of internships at different parts of the company that students may flow through, and we might even create, you know, we've had a couple instances of special programs for a few years that have generated internships, but they're, relatively small number of people first, and they're, quite dependent on the company's appetite and need and budgets for interns in a given year. So something, if you're thinking of moving larger cohorts into, one of the bigger companies on a regular, annual cycle or something like that, I am not as familiar with those. I don't know of those things existing at the divisional level. There may be some programs in the university where that happens, but I don't think it's super common. I'd have to look at that.
Okay.
I'm happy to go try to find out.
How much hands-on experience do your students actually have? I mean, obviously they're sitting in the classroom, but what access to the practicum would they have?
Yeah, I would say, so I'm in the School of Theater, Film, and Television, and I would say our students are probably 50-50 in the classroom and in a hands-on context, and maybe even more hands-on. I mean, we as a professional school at the graduate level, everything is largely sort of in a professional context, so it involves practical production. And at the undergraduate level, in both our Department of Theater, which is actually pretty relevant to immersive entertainment, and the film, television, and digital media, they would be making films and taking hands-on courses and editing and, essentially doing everything that you would in a normal production, just at a smaller scale and with a different sort of direction. So it's a pretty hands-on program. And in fact, one of the things that I think has always been kind of a missed opportunity at UCLA and probably at USC as well is the idea that capstone experiences in the arts are regular, right? All of our students get some type of capstone style production or hands-on activities, and that opens up a lot of things for STEM students. And so I do have some STEM students that will come to me looking for projects and things that they can work on because they're hands-on, even if they are generally, more in a classroom setting. There are other universities nationally that have, I think, done a pretty good job of combined capstone experiences across the disciplines. But yeah, short answer is I would say hands-on in the arts at UCLA, things are quite hands-on. And they tend to be a mix of students, initiating their own work and doing production projects for classroom work, and then capstone and thesis projects, and we support them with space and equipment and things like that. And so yeah, pretty hands-on really. And the same is true for Northridge and I'd say most of sort of the larger regional film and television and theater programs, and even animation, interactive media, all those things, they're quite hands-on typically as a field.
What percentage of your graduates would you say find employment?
Depends on the program. Generally they're quite employable. Probably the toughest, right, is acting. We get lots and lots of acting students, and there are very few good jobs for actors. But on the production side, I think generally people find work, even if it's not the original, they want to be a director, but they take a different type of job for a while as they try to figure out if they can do that. Some of I would say for example, the most skill-based program that we have is probably in production design and costume design. And they are very proud of a nearly 100% placement, because those students are basically trained to go directly into a guild as quickly as they can. And so those areas are not in the kind of the technology and production focused areas that I think Kevin is most interested in, but we have quite a bit of experience of that, like pipeline for students to go into, go into their profession sooner rather than later, and maybe less into a mailroom than historically would have been the case. So yeah, it's pretty good. Statistic wise and things, I'd have to go ask and get back to you, since it's not that employer relation area is not really my area, but I'd be happy to go get some statistics for you.
It was truly a ballpark question. I didn't come expecting you to have, finite stats on anything. It's more to get a feel of where you are, identify what your need is, and how to partner you in with the larger vision so that more people are getting the training they need and they are going out, being able to be employed. And it is where there's the true innovation in this, is that there is the intersectionality.
Mhm.
And also, even for your own students, when you're saying theater, it can go beyond that because now we're in a multimedia
Sure. Yes.
lifestyle. And it's, I mean, even as you're talking to me right now, and I'm thinking, because I went through the graduate degree process myself, but Kevin could take, let's say, his apprentices and go do investigative journalism on your process, on any of your processes. You could do it as as really at the micro or at the macro level, depending on the scale of the project.
Yeah, I think that, we've seen that was some of the, I think the concept for the proposal at NSF was a mix of production and sort of the observation and participation in production. I mean, you asked what the need is, and I think for UCLA specifically, and I believe this is true for the other campuses, though, in different ways and at different degrees, is we are not resourced by the state to track the cutting edge of production. So we just aren't, right? And so there are some programs that have been more successful. I'd say USC does a better job. Cal State Northridge, some of the larger CSU, like they'll track, for example, the equipment and so on, but the UC goals are different. And so we're not necessarily always tracking the state of the art in terms of equipment as much and things like that, equipment skills, new faculty, growth in faculty, for example, to cover new intersectional skills. It's not really on the table for our school. And so that makes sort of chasing these opportunities and really providing structural solutions difficult. So, for example, we think we have an audience for a summer institute that would host high school students and high school through community college, and we do this already in something like musical theater, let's say, or film directing, and we'd like to do the same thing in more advanced technology or emerging areas, so extended reality or virtual production or something like that. And if we already had facilities and already had people that were kind of tracking the industry state of the art to build a high school program or build a sort of broader community college, or even sort of a longer term apprenticeship engagement with stuff that's already happening, could build on that infrastructure. But we don't have infrastructure in that at the level that we would need in XR, let's say, to do that. And so that was the intention, sort of the thinking behind the steam engine proposal, was to leverage the sort of research capacity of the university to say we should be at the state of the art in this area. And if we can if we are, sort of making sure we're at the state of the art, then we will be able to develop these other sort of integrated workforce development opportunities. And so that's sort of my hesitation in these conversations, is not so much a lack of interest in like trying to get Kevin's program going or support him in whatever way we could, but like that baseline is still something that until there's a major investment is really quite tricky. And there are some other cases. So ASU is a good example of a university that at the level the president, the city of Mesa, has invested in a couple 100,000 square feet XR facility in Mesa, and has new faculty and new resources. But I think they're then at the now the people step, which is how do we kind of support and use this in a way that engages, does all the things that we've talked about. So I think the different participating universities are in a different version of the same boat, where we really want long-term engagement of the federal government in advancing, the U.S. capacity in creative production with emerging technologies, and then these other programs will be a natural natural part of that. Sorry for the monologue, but that's kind of the.
Oh no, I mean, this is really, it's a brainstorming session in many ways. It just where are the points of connectivity. I have another question for you. As we're state of California, we're looking at equity and access for people to where you're not just coming from a place of privilege, and to truly open those doors to our youth. And of course, there are going to be some that are outside of the youth, where it ends at 24. I mean, even at the university level, you've got people coming back 40, 50, 60. And that's where I would say it's, even as an instructor, how many students do you have that struggle or that need help or need direction or a lift? And perhaps is this something that would help the university with the diversity, equity, and inclusion?
100%. I think we have plenty of students that struggle. And I think I know that for my dean in theater, film, and television, his primary fundraising goal is actually how do we, bolster the funds available to help students through difficult sort of family or personal circumstances, and with the cost of living in LA and the cost of going to school and the complications that they might have. So I think that at that level, there's absolutely a need. I think we also have, I tend to sort of, it's easier a little bit for me to think about it in terms of graduate education, but it's true at the undergraduate level as well, where our ability to recruit a diverse group of students into a California, like into UCLA, is dependent, and let's say into the arts, even in comparison with another field, is dependent on our ability to offer them funding and to try to sort of manage the burden of their tuition expenses and things like that. And so in the sciences, for example, at the Geffen School of Medicine and at other medicine, there are now endowments that are largely sort of removing tuition as a barrier for people in those fields. And there's nothing comparable happening. I think Yale did it in the School of Drama, maybe, but there are sort of fewer opportunities. So from the graduate level to the undergraduate level, we have both a kind of a support. We're always looking for ways to support students that don't have the financial means or need other support to get through the program, and also to provide, community for them as well. And that affects, but it also affects recruitment and diversity of recruitment. It affects, the ability to keep excellent people in those programs when they have difficult circumstances. So I would say it's top of mind for many administrators.
Right. And guys, just for the purpose of time, I'm going to represent at least one question I think Jay Tucker would ask if he was on the call. And this may shift to the rest of the time that we have. General Bray put a Pathway Productions. If you can, General Bray, this might tie into what we have before us as an opportunity with Executive Order 9981, and some of the people who may have become aware of our ability to be part of that process, how we can actually talk to them in a way where something could happen. So General Bray, if you can expound on what you meant by Pathway Productions, I think I know where you're going.
Okay, I have, for lack of a better word, I've talked to all of you all at length at different times. The story, if you take my paragraph, it's what we're doing. The story we're trying to use right now is one that's associated with the title for it is Valor, is Victory by Valor. The effects, and this I should read, Victory by Valor, and then it's ... or colon, the effects of 9981. Okay, and what it does, or the relationship of 9981 is probably better, because what it does then is we say we've got a story. Okay, if I told this.
Okay, he may be coming back. So to that point, General Bray, are you coming back? Okay, there
Yeah.
we go. We
Yeah,
missed you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so you all have heard the story. So without beating that up, this is the by with and for students. Okay, this whole program is by with and for students, and it really goes back to a lot of things, and there's a lot to cover. But the reality is this because we've made a lot. We talked a whole lot just now, but the reality is this is a simple design with complex execution. The simple design is this. You've got a story that you're trying to tell, and you're trying to put people, students, in position to build it, tell it, first build it, research it, develop it, show it in a way that it is relevant and is received by this group. And the story that you've chosen in this case happens to be one that's associated with 9981. Because, oh, by the way, it affects an awful lot of this nation. But you've got students to do that. So now in this process, you've got, all of you know infinitely better than I do, from the writer, researcher, director, producer, cameraman, how many people are needed to make a quality product. But you also know that one of the sub stories in the story is that these kids are going to learn this skill under the direction and tutelage of a mentor or someone that they're going to be an apprentice for. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 at every position. You've got the talent, and wherever the talent is ready to do this, he takes the lead. Wherever time affords it, he takes the lead. And he is coached and taught through the process. Or, in some cases where they don't think they're ready, he observes. He truly does become he or she becomes an apprentice. They are watching, observing when required, and they're doing the work when capable. All the way through till it's done. And there is a person that's an advocate at every step of the way in telling the story. But there's an academic portion in the front end where you do spend some time trying to make sure you got it right. Make sure that the story you're trying to tell as best as you can will do what you hope it will do. But
So General Brake, my question is: the pathway production something you just created in this couple of paragraphs now, or is it something?
You said what you asked the question. What are we? Your pathway. Your pathway. This group is developing a pathway to a career. That's what your real goal is. That's what you all are trying to do. You're trying to get this talent, this youth, ready for a career in what they think they want right now. Everybody on this line probably knows that you're going to morph one or two times between where you stand and where you sit. But you're taking off to go somewhere.
Okay.
And this venue is affording some students a pathway. Now, some would say, like the Cheshire Cat, where they headed. I don't know, but any road to get you there. This is what we have to kind of sort through. And so but you're giving them a direct pathway. You've got a gentleman right now, excuse me, Mr. Burke. His curriculum at the center of the entertainment universe is as such where he's got certain pathways that are 100%, others that are 50%. Nothing he is doing is less than 50% if the person wants to do it, to be fair. Even an actress or an actress, he could probably guarantee I'll get you a gig before you leave. You may not be able to feed yourself every day off the one I get you, but I'll get you a gig.
Wow.
Others, I can feed you because he's in that place, in that space. And if he finds some real raw talent that looks amazing, can talk amazing, he knows when he meets that person they've got it. Because they're there. His connections, his alums, they're there. They know what they've got. Similarly, we've got a person that can write grants, that knows how to write grants, knows how to talk to students. We've got a student that's on this line right now that has a sensing of what his generation, millennia and Z, will listen to and won't listen to. We just got to get that right.
Right.
But
and I put up, General Bray, I put in the category, here's a successful program. It's called HBCU in LA, where it was a recruitment, an HR executive.
Don't try to stack on. Don't stack on.
No, but one of the people in this team is part of our team to help JP understand.
Okay, wait, listen, this is your highway. Anything else is an on ramp or an off ramp.
Okay. All right. So here's the premise. Here's the hypothesis that HBCU people didn't have equity to Hollywood. So this lady's giving them access and getting 100% placement for these people in this HBCU program in LA. And they get the summer internship, they get all the access to the gatekeepers, and then they come up with a product at the end of their summer internship, but they get placed. But they come really from the place where folks are saying they don't get access to the UCLA experience.
This is it. Then what you have now is a funnel. Okay, HBCU. It's 110 universities, and LA has some new, and I hate to call them HBCUs because they really aren't. They are universities that are trying to inherit a black ethnicity associated with them, but they're not historically that way. They're just not any more than some of the high schools that happen to be. So, but anyhow, but HBCU in its broadest sense, there's a funnel. So this becomes a place or a vacuum. In fact, that might be what you want to call it, a vacuum. So in other words, if you look out there and you see HBCUs on the horizon that are willing to get on, that want to join the pathway, you can suck them in. You can suck them in, and then they will enjoy the premise, the talent, the leadership of Mr. Burke, like they have possibly attended UCLA, but they're not. But he'll suck them in, and they become part of this process. But but don't try to throw something out. Bring them onto the highway. Suck them on the highway.
Right.
But they come in here. Do not try to tell them there's a curve, there's a highway. Just try to get on there someplace.
You're absolutely right, sir. So with this highway that is paved and it's ready for, let's say, gatekeepers, or I would call them not stakeholders, but gatekeepers who have opportunities for that highway to become a really, again, 100% on-ramp to making these people not only competitive, but making them predators in their ecosystem of learning all these skills, all the things they can do to produce products in the metaverse or anywhere else. The White House has engaged us in the past in trying to figure out how can they help support their initiative to make the country more productive and competitive and raising the tide so everybody can get there. But we have this one highway, Gerald Bray says, that they've been interested in. Now we have some content that they're interested in. We can put that content on the highway. And put it in a
you point them to the highway. You tell them that you can build them an on-ramp. But this is your highway. You start trying to change the highway and say, I'm going to change. I hate to be figurative, but if you start trying to take the highway and say, okay, you've got this. What you have is you have people. The real goal by using HBCU, let's call it what it is. It's an effort to give African Americans who are probably more located to the HBCU, but by the way, if a Caucasian from an HBCU wants to get on, it becomes part of the on-ramp for them. But the real goal is the expectation that an HBCU will have more people of color who are wanting to get on this highway. Now, if in fact you have made an agreement with the HBCU community that you're going to take, that you're going to help them get involved in some of these skills, in some of these skills, then it's a simple matter again, is letting them know that they're on the ramp. And as you start to try to find that talent out there that's going to mentor, coach, teach, and mentor, you let that talent know that you're going to have HBCU students, because some of them may want to volunteer to mentor somebody of color. And so you then have the ability to go out and hunt. It's like a scholarship. You got scholarships. These mentors, these teachers, they are basically a scholarship. And they will decide that I'm going to offer a scholarship, but to try to balance the field, I'm offering scholarships to HBCU students. So you then can tell an HBCU or the portal of HBCUs, you have 5, 6, 7 apprenticeships that are for HBCU students only. Again, you're sucking them on your highway. You are not trying to change the highway.
Right. You're right, sir. You're exactly right. Well, I only mention this because my outcome, my struggle to success is really to produce more people like JP. So he's my poster child. So Jeff, this is the young man who has been. So
whatever it is, and again, don't waste time on it. You got JP.
Right.
Define JP. Make him a standard. Make him a standard. Let Brother Burke know what he's looking at, and Burke can then also do two things. And I'm sorry if I'm speaking for you. He can do two things. He can make a wish list of, as he looks through all the disciplines that are necessary and needed, all the skills that are needed, he can also basically say which ones will best fit personalities, skills, and abilities, and which ones will be more challenging. He doesn't stop him, doesn't tell him he can't. He acts like a career counselor. Plus, he is also a job placement person.
Right.
And the collective between him, I hope I'm making sense.
Well, you are. Well, and JP he embodies everything that we've talked about in the flesh right now. He is in my federal Department of Labor apprenticeship program, being paid by the city of LA to learn how to be useful in my ability to place him. And if nobody places him, he's going to be working on Executive 9981 for as long as I can, again, underwrite his employment. So he's got state supported WIOA dollars, but after that runs out, I'm going to be looking to fund him myself. But he's actually started with contextualizing why he's interested in being an apprentice, as well as the content. And so I'm going to let JP speak for himself. JP, is there anything you want to add from your point of view of things you could tell Jeff about how you'd like to, duplicate yourself and bring in more people like you to the fight?
Yeah, well, nice to meet you, Mr. Burke. But yeah, so I mean, again, I've been under Kevin's apprenticeship program for past like a month and a half now, working on the Victory by Valor project, and it's something that it's actually opened my eyes to kind of like the history of what America has gone through, especially through segregation and racial justice. And even though if it's a big project, the research that Kevin has made me do it's really opened my mind, and I've been able to learn a lot just from doing the research. And again, the point that we're trying to do with this project is to be able to inspire others, for me to be able to be a part of something that's bigger than me, and also to help out others in the community, to inspire them for them to go out and do their own research. It means a lot to me, and I'm appreciative of General Bray and Mr. Clark for the opportunities they've given me. And of course, I want to be able to build my career and my future in the entertainment industry. So, and for me being here as well, meeting you guys and having this meeting with you, to be in the room, where it happens, I'm grateful and just happy for the opportunity.
Right. Right. And let me say, Jeff, this young man was recommended by someone who is a working producer in the industry. And this young man, I think in 2020, was in high school. And if you can, JP, start from there as to what you're currently doing right now to employ yourself and to keep, competitive. And then what it is you hope to expect from this apprenticeship program or just the experience in total. Can you just tell us a little bit about that short journey to where we are now and what your expectations are?
Yeah. So, long story short, a little bit about me. I grew up, loving film, always wanted to be in the film industry. And throughout high school, I had the opportunity to finally start taking classes to learn about the subject. Because, having traditional Filipino parents, they wanted me to kind of go into more, like finance or business or, law. But my passion's always been for film. And thanks to, my classes I took in high school, I went all the way up to our interbaccalaureate film program that we have. And because I graduated in 2020, due to COVID, I wasn't able to attend, college. So instead of going through the whole online learning, which because half my senior year was online learning, I knew it wasn't for me. I decided to just start working full time. And right now, to keep myself steady, I'm employed as an EMT. I went to an accelerated EMT school. I'm currently actually on my way to try to attend UCLA's paramedic program in the fall. But at the same time, while doing all this stuff, I'm trying to hustle out here and continue doing film and try to get my foot in the door while working, in the emergency medical field. So yeah, and then through a lot of the other projects and freelance that I've done before, I was able to meet Kevin through my old producer, Lamont Pete. And it's so far it's been an amazing ride. I can't wait to see everything else that we'll be able to work on, especially again with Victory by Valor. For me being this like one of my first few huge projects that I've been doing. It's definitely a first like documentary research type of project I've ever done. And again, it's Kevin's been helping me, build all my skills, all the communications and Zoom calls we've been on, all the footage and the videos that I've made for him, giving me critiques on how I can make it better and how I can change it to help better fit the vision. It's a great learning experience, and I'm hungry to learn more. I'm hungry to keep working and to hopefully be able to pursue this career in film as like a full-time thing instead of having to juggle between EMS and film. At the end of the day, I want to die doing film. I want to die being in the entertainment industry. That's my passion. It's always been my dream, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. I have that passion.
Right.
I have that hunger.
Right. And oh by the way, this man has self-funded all of his hardware and software. He's got one of the most impressive rigs I've ever seen. When he's gone out to the field, all the other E&G crews, they're looking at his stuff. And I mean, so he's put his money where his mouth is. And I know a lot of students can't do that. But, again, he's 20, 21 years of age, and he's learned that, hey, you've got to be able to come, to the game with the tools that will allow you to actually start to exercise and really practice so that people can see your work. And that's part of the problem. Yeah. A lot of these young people don't have access to the tools, hardware and software, and he's got them.
Yeah. Yeah. If I may add, just to jump on that topic about my own kind of gear, because of my last job at Amazon before I became an EMT, I was able to use a lot of that money to be able to actually buy the setup that's sitting right behind my phone. My computer. I built my own PC. I have my own camera gimbal. Currently, I run a Canon 80D DSLR camera is what I shoot on, but I hope in the future to be able to upgrade to something a little bit more professional. I've worked with the Red cameras. I've worked with Panasonic cameras before. So yeah, it's definitely something that I want to keep investing in myself to do. And so I can be better at my job and hopefully be more accessible to whatever gigs await for me in the future.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so Jeff, through the apprenticeship program, JP is probably going to be the lead dog, if you will. But I have another young man who's got some disabilities, who came from Cal State Northridge, recommended by their emerging film program, who had done a lot of the work prior to JP coming on. And we started working with him back in March of 2022. and he's getting ready to graduate. But that's how I met Renee, because he needed exposure to some resources that he needed to compete, you know, Department of Rehabilitation, potentially Department of Independent Living, a lot of things that young people, young Generation Z and Alpha are faced with post-pandemic. So they have a lot of resources and understanding about how to get these people level set so that they can be successful in any endeavor, so that it can become, you know, something that's a win-win for everybody. And that's what I think is missing, the apprenticeship part that they offer to the traditional workforce education. And that lexicon, that language has got to be explained by somebody who will listen. I think Governor Newsom can do that. If he get the right people in the room, I think he can explain to people it's not so complex. This is a guy like JP or others that we can point to say, hey, demystifying it is probably what Governor Newsom could do more than anything.
Thanks. Renee, I think, has her hand up. So, but
Renee, I'm sorry.
so great
Yes.
to meet you, JP. Thanks.
Really, what I was going to say is I've had the opportunity to look at Kevin's apprentices, and where JP may be the poster child, you know, the shining star, I truly have to give Kevin a lot of credit for the investment that he has made in all of the apprentices, including one, and Kevin and I had a very candid conversation. When I look at the product produced, the work, beautiful, lovely. In trying to engage into this young gentleman, I would not hire him. He was not able to present well, to speak well, and it's such a disservice to exclude him when he has the talent. You give him the instruction, he comes right back with it, because I've engaged with Kevin on multiple occasions and had a chance to see the whole range. And what apprenticeship does is it has a proven return on investment. I want to say it's $1 for every dollar that you invest, you get $1.47 back in terms of the quality of the employee that you get. But it's one of the drivers too with Governor Newsom is to serve the underserved populations. And actually there's a new term, a priority population, because we're now trying to reach people that it's their parents, let's say, can't just write a check for them to go to college. Or I would venture to say it truly is a privilege to just go to school and not have to carry employment at the same time, so that you can put food in the fridge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I have a whole PowerPoint. I mean, there's things I can send to you, but there never is a substitute for interpersonal engagement.
Right. And
so
guys, Kevin, I know, Jeff, you got to leave.
Yeah, I have one thing to put in everybody's head, but go ahead, Kevin, and then I just had
I was going to say, in our conversation with Jay, he said how the run of show or how this thing could look like is putting not only the thought and stake leaders around a round table, but to have people like JP and other students film it for review. And that would be the event for February 28th. So we like talking about a whole bunch of panels and moving pieces and whirling dervishes and all these things that nobody can take away and say, what was the single thing that we came out of this with consensus that we can do? I like the idea of product pathway, whatever that could be. But if we had this roundtable, Jay Tucker, Jeff Burke, you, Renee, and anybody else we can invite who could actually add to the lexicon, the language needed to be able to take this directly to the students, hopefully indirectly to the instructors, and definitely to the workforce people, so that they understand that this is a new day. So that's what I'd like to see happen. So this recording I'm going to share with Jay Tucker, and there's some other people from Cal State Dominguez and Cal State Northridge and Santa Monica College have talked individually, so they can bring some students to the cohort or to the experiment. Because that's really what I'm looking to do, is if we had 75 spaces, we have half of those people be some of the candidates they want to sign up, for this opportunity. And that's what General Bray's always preached me, is where is the opportunity for the people who need it the most? So they could be UCLA, USC, Cal State Northridge, or it could be JP. He's not even in school right now. So they come in all shapes and sizes. They just need to see that there's a pathway that fits their now new way of understanding how to survive in this economy. So that's kind of what I'd like to look at. Any other suggestions, questions, or comments before we break?
I think I'm good for right now. I'll send you a couple things that are coming up for us in the next few weeks, including a trip to DC. And I'd love to get maybe some thoughts on whether I can ask my leadership for anything while they're there.
Right, and I originally was going to invite our point of contact with the Department of Defense onto this call, but I thought better, and I want to prepare for her. So we're not just meeting her. So a little pre-work that we can do to give her some one-pager as to what we thought would be a good conversation with them, agnostic of the content, but especially because the content, they have an interest in bringing us in. But if this was just something else, how could we actually help workforce through the lens of young people become more palatable and more engaging for them to compete? That's what the DoD said that they want, is a more forceful workforce so that we compete with, sponsored education around the world. And we're losing that war. And so that's really what I think would resonate with the people from the DoD, the White House, Veterans Affairs, for all the vets who need, access and opportunity to learn skills. These are the people that they're concerned about. So hopefully, again, we can create this one sheet that would produce a roundtable that we can film and share. And who knows, maybe a couple of those people into the event. But we have to give them, again, this very specific highway that we're on, and see if they can actually on-ramp or they can drive there.
Female, then that way.
Okay. So General Bright, I think we're gonna leave. You have anything you want to send us out on?
Show what you got. Show what you got.
So General Bright, any lasting comments before we break?
Yeah, I'm actually still here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, so we're getting ready to sign off. I wanted to say any lasting words that we can use in preparation for a meeting with Victoria Bowen.
No, I want to make sure that what you said you wanted to do was leave here with something that people could put their mouths around, they can chew on. And so I gave you that short piece right there. And I'd like to hear from Burke or Renee to see if that sets the task that she has at hand. And Mr. Burke, does it set the task around the story that we're going to expand on, which is already begun, because we've already got JP working, but the researching, I think the research part is where we need some work.
Great.
So yeah, just briefly, I think the idea of sort of production as pathway, and I think you used a little bit of a different turn of phrase of pathway productions, is really aligned with what we had proposed in this engine. I think on my end specifically, it's really about looking at how production is changing and involving people in those changes and in making the changes to how production is happening. So it's a little distinct from what Kevin is trying to do right now, but I think very compatible. And it seems like language that we can sort of bring together. One is the what are you making and who is making it and how are you supporting them in making it? And then, we're also interested in how is it made? Why is it made? How is it changing due to the shifts in technology? But yeah, it's quite compatible. And I think it's a good way to start bridging these different ideas.
Right. And so here's my ask for both everybody, from Renee's office and from Jeff's office. Can we have another letter of introduction of what we're trying to build as a new pathway? Because that's what, if we focus on that as the letter, as opposed to anything else, I think we have a much better way to socialize that with other people who may want to join, and understanding that this is what the actual caption.
Sure. If at least for me, if what you mean by a letter is sort of a one sheet or an executive summary,
executive summary of what it is that you understand that we're trying to achieve together.
Well, I think what I can give you is at least my perspective or the steam engine part of it, that you can then sort of think about how to connect or craft to everything that you're doing, and I'll try to do it, in a way that it can be shared directly with DoD or whoever you'd wish. I want to still make sure I'm focusing on the part that we're sort of pursuing at UCLA, but I think it can be compatible or in support. So I'm happy to do that. I have a meeting with my dean on Thursday. Let me get through that conversation and sort of think about the other people that these type of summaries need to go to, but I'm happy to do that.
So I lied. One more question. If we were to have a meeting with DOD, when would you like to have it, or when would you be prepared to have it?
I think it depends on the agenda. I think if the agenda is primarily around victory by valor, then I can do it whenever, and I'm just there to support your goals, right? If the conversation is broader and sort of more about the set of interconnected initiatives here, then I think maybe either Friday or Monday.
Yeah, I think we keep
so
it
it
narrow.
just depends on the scale.
Yeah, I want to keep the agenda narrow to what the invitation was from the DOD White House and Veterans Affairs, which is Executive Order 991, aka a slice of Executive 991, which is victory by valor.
Right, and so in that case, I think any time would be fine. I would be there, to try to speak in support of it as best I can in whatever way that you are interested, since it wouldn't be around these other things that I need to get a handle on the steam engine directly. Then I think it's really your schedule and what you would like.
Okay. So any questions, suggestions, or comments before we break? Because I think I've got some rules that I'm going to task everybody to look at. But anything that you guys want to share before we break?
Oh, say that again.
I said, any questions, suggestions, or comments before we break contact?
No, we're good. The only thing like I said before is that make sure we got the stories that we want to tell. And I think victory by valor, and you can't separate the two. If I may tell you, Mr. Burke, is 9981 and victory by valor need to be together.
Got it. Yeah, that was my understanding.
Right.
Yes.
And I would also say by blending it together, investigative journalism and the subject matter can be victory by valor with the executive order, with the understanding that the learning process that the apprentice is going through, in this case, it results in victory. The assignment is really victory to contribute to victory by valor, but then look at the cross-sectionality, how that can be applied to many other disciplines, because at the end of the day, subject matter is subject matter, and it can be many different things.
Right, and so I think we've got to cut right now, because we're at the place where I think we can take pathway production and backpack journalism, investigative journalism, and blend them into this hypothesis that we're going to create this product around. There's a backpack investigative journalism and a pathway product, a pathway production product as a potential pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship entity. So, okay, guys. All right. Thank you guys for attending, and I will share this with Jay and see if we can get back to consensus on what we're going to do for a DOD meeting. With 75 people on an Excel spreadsheet and email, so you can see all the people that are involved with that movement. Okay, guys. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.